Today we're gonna tidy up some things and take this out for a proper test drive in the neighborhood. Hopefully, I believe we can accomplish that. So we're just gonna keep fixing some small stuff with the clutch and throttle and all of that. And I have started here with the throttle bracket that I have removed. Gonna drill a hole here for the return spring and a hole here for a clamp for the throttle wire. So I'm gonna fix that. And I have also started a little bit with the steering column. So I have gotten the new tumbler in so we can start connecting the electrical and start it from inside, which would be nice, of course. I have also put in all of this and I have glued this little tab that was broken. I bought some 5-minute curing epoxy, which isn't curing in 5 minutes, so it's still pretty soft. I might just wedge something in here to give it some support so it will hold better. But at least it's together for now. Maybe we will have to take it apart later. But we're that far along at least. So we're gonna keep working with this throttle cable and then we can just tidy up everything and hopefully take it for a test drive. I'm having a little bit of a problem, which isn't a big thing, but since I have tried to make things look good, I painted the engine bay, rattle cam, but it looks decent, and I fixed the engine so that it would look decent. Now I have to make everything else look decent because otherwise everything else looks like crap. So the throttle bracket I made, I have painted that black, so we're waiting for that to dry. And also, since I made the steering column so nice, I couldn't put on my indicator thing for, what do you call this? Indicator lever. Because it was so rusty, so now I have cleaned it and painted it with some chrome paint to make it look decent. So yeah, I'm spending some unnecessary time, but it gonna make it look a bit better when it's done. So I mean, it's well spent, but it's not helping us getting it more drivable. But I'm gonna attach the bracket here so I can put this on, and I'm gonna go with one of these clamps to hold it to the metal bracket I made. What I want to do here is I want to drill a hole through this because I don't have one of these balls, so I just could put this over like this, but this thing is so damn hard to drill in, so I'm not sure that I will be able. I tried, but it didn't get anywhere. So I'm gonna see if I can make a hole, otherwise we have to figure something out. And then basically the throttle will be done. Then when the lever is done, we can put the steering column back together. So yeah, I'm gonna try and make that hole and then we can put all of that back. Now we're starting to get somewhere here. Throttle, linkage, everything here is done. I don't know why I think this bracket is ugly, but it's very functional. I need to cut that bolt later. But that works. I had to use the, what do you call these, rotating things that you port the heads with to make this hole, because the drill bit just couldn't drill through that, at least the drill bits I had. So that is all done. Now we have a working throttle. So besides that, I have fixed everything with the steering column. So that is all in place. We can crank, well, or we will be able to crank from here. We have a steering lock and all of this works. So that's really great. And also I put in, I'm gonna turn on the light here. I put in locking pins here for the clutch rods, and I don't know if I have to take this apart, so I haven't done it properly yet. But the clutch pedal is working fantastically, but I'm not sure how far I want it to be up, because I want to get the brakes in and see if this comes here or lower, if I want to lower the clutch pedal. But that's not an issue. The thing is, I want to make a stop here so that the clutch pedal can't release too far, because we might lose, as you saw there, the rod that goes to the, maybe I can show you from here, almost, the to the clutch fork can jump out, and then we lose all clutch. So we have to look at that, but for now that is done. So mainly now we have to look at brakes and look at electrical, and I think I'm gonna start with the electrical. So we're gonna hook up the battery and hook up the cables behind there so that we can get power into the car, I'm gonna connect the steering column. Then we can turn the ignition and see where we get power in the engine bay and start to connect everything. I believe this is the old wire for the coil, which means that is going here. We have, I think this blue one is for the oil pressure sender. I believe this white one might be for the temperature sender, and something else here I don't know at the moment. And over here we have the heater fan, and I believe that this is for the starter. So it would be really nice to get all of that connected so we can control everything from inside the car. And when we have that done, we can see if we can manage to get some brakes. So yeah, that's the plan. So electrical, and actually I have actually been looking forward for this. So behind the battery here, we have these 4 wires coming up that are cut, of course. Everything else seems to be plugged in or wants to be where they, or are where they want to be. We have one of the headlight things here. But anyway, we have these 3 that are taped together, and this one, we can see that this is a faded red, and this seems to be a little newer. And if we look over here, we can see that we have a red, blue, and a white that is cut, and also a brown, but we see that the blue, white, and red goes here. So probably they are cut here, and we don't need them. And obviously the brown one that goes into the car might be a horn wire, but that is cut for whatever reason. I can't find the horns. Why would they steal the horns from the car? But I can't see them. So yeah, that will have to be a problem for tomorrow. But anyway, we can see that we have this, what I believe the faded red wire coming here, goes to this relay where it hooks up to this red wire that goes into the car. So I believe that if we hook this up and don't mind these, we will get power into the car, and hopefully when we turn the ignition, power will start distributing to wherever they want to go. So if that works, we can start check, is this ignition power? Can we use this for the coil, for the distributor? And we can start to, with my Power Pro, we can start pushing power or ground back, see what is the oil pressure light, temperature light, and stuff like that. That's not important right now. The most important is finding the crank wire, which I believe is the purple one over there, and the switched ignition wire to distributor. But we'll see how much we plug in right now. So yeah, hook up that one and see what happens. I hooked up the red wire at the battery, and I have put on ignition in here. And now, if we take my power probe, we can see that on this wire, we have positive. And also on these 2 wires here, the white one and the blue one. And that tells me that I believe the white and the blue is for our gauges, and this is for our switched, or the ignition to turn the engine on. So I'm gonna try and hook this up to the coil here, and I am going to just check that that one is the correct one for the starter. I'm gonna connect that, and then we can already start it. And maybe we can put on some cables here to hook up the temperature sender and oil sender. Got the wire to the distributor hooked up, and I put my power probe here on the purple wire with the sound on. And if we turn the ignition here, we can hear that it gives it power. So that is for the starter. So I'm just gonna hook that up, then we can start it from inside the car. We got the crank wire hooked up, and we have already put in the wire to the distributor. So now it should just start, which it does. So that's really nice. We can turn it on and turn it off from inside the car, which obviously will help when we're gonna try and drive it. So, I mean, I could spend a lot of time on the electrical. We could hook up the oil pressure switch, the temperature sensor switch, and a lot of other stuff. But I mean, there is a lot of electrical to do on this car. And I mean, we know we have oil pressure since we have been running it, and I have had it running for 20 minutes at like 2,500 RPM, and it didn't get hot. So I think we can drive it a little bit without worrying that we will overheat the engine. So with that said, I think I'm going to leave the electrical right now, be satisfied with where we are right now, and try to get some brakes here instead. So yeah, we're gonna focus on the brakes now. So brakes. I have bought a new master cylinder because the old one didn't look that nice. So my plan right now is we're just gonna bolt this in, we're gonna bleed it, then we're gonna hook up the lines that we have and see what happens. I'm just gonna try and get fluid to all the wheels, try and bleed them. Hopefully nothing is leaking too much. It's a wheel cylinder or whatever. I don't think the brake lines are rusted out. So we'll see what starts to work and what not. Then later I'm going to probably buy new wheel cylinders, buy new shoes and go through it properly. But I wanted to save that money at the moment. So yeah, I will probably hate myself later on when I have to do this, when we're leaking brake fluid everywhere, but that's just life. I want to get, if we can get brakes at one wheel, which will make this a lot easier to drive. And if I want to drive it out or drive it into the garage again, as I said, it will be easier if we have some sort of brakes. So that's the plan. Bolt is on that I should have painted yesterday, but I didn't. And start fixing it. Got the master cylinder in place, it's bled, and then I put on the brake lines. And this took way longer than it should have. You have this stupid locking ring that is supposed to go on the pin here at the brake pedal, which was really annoying to get in place. But eventually I made it work. So that's all done. So also I have cracked all the bleeders open, which in itself was a little bit annoying because it is so tight when these have drum brakes, but I managed. So all of them are open. So now I'm gonna start pumping, see if we get any pressure, and call it good. I'm not gonna do too much here. I just wanna have some sort of brakes. So we'll see if we can get anything to work. So I'm having some trouble getting fluid to the wheels. I did bleed the master cylinder and the bleeders are open. Sometimes it gravity bleeds itself, but that doesn't happen now apparently. I have tried to put that on the bleeders and make vacuum, and I can make vacuum. It doesn't go straight through, so I just don't get any fluid. I don't know why. I'm having some air bubbles coming out of the rear reservoir, which I believe in this case are the rear brakes. So maybe they are self-bleeding slowly, but nothing in the front brakes. So I'm gonna keep struggling here, see if I can make it work. Otherwise, we will test drive it without brakes. So this is taking a lot longer than I thought it would, but I think we're maybe on the tipping point here, because I feel some pressure in the pedal, not a lot, but some. And before the car rolled easy, and now it sits in place while I have the brake pedal pushed down. So also when I started to feel some pressure, I pushed it really hard and you can hear a ping. And I think that was the front right wheel cylinder. It sounded like in that area. And also that is the wheel where I have seen some sort of indication of fluid. On the other wheels I haven't seen any fluid at all. So something is happening, but also it might be that something will seize up and we won't be able to drive because the car will sit stuck in here. But we'll see, we just have to keep struggling. I haven't had this much problem before, but if we think about the other cars that I have done brakes on recently, I have already redone the whole system, new brake lines, new brake hoses, new wheel cylinders or calipers, and now we're trying to get an old system to work. So yeah, we'll see if we can get it to work. Otherwise we will drive without brakes. After a lot of back and forth and bleeding, we finally have pressure in the car, and it was a little bit weird because I got fluid to the rear first, which most often you get fluid to the front first since there's a shorter distance. But when I got fluid to the rear brakes, I got some pressure and I got more pressure in the pedal, and then I could push it really hard, and you can hear the front right wheel cylinder cracking up and moving. And when that happened, that started to give fluid. And after that, this wheel was really hard to make it to come fluid. So I was smashing the pedal, and eventually we had fluid here, so I could bleed the whole system. But unfortunately, we can see here that it's pretty hard to see, but we do have a leak from the wheel cylinder. So, I mean, that's not the end of the world. I have no problem in buying new wheel cylinder and brake shoes. We have to clean the drum, but for now we have some sort of brakes. So I'm gonna go ahead and prepare to drive this thing out of here. We're finally ready and trying to drive this thing out of the garage. And I wanna say, like, first test drive in 30 years, but I don't really know. The expiration tag on the license plate says 1989. Is that the plates for this car? I don't know. It was probably running a while after 89. Who knows? But probably around the 30 years since this thing ran and drove under its own power. So that's a pretty big thing. So let's start it and drive it out of here. This is really cool. It sounds so badass when it's idling. It doesn't sound so badass when you give it some throttle. And it's really nice to see it outside when you can see the whole car now that it sits a little bit more level. And these wheels, they just make this car. As I said, really nice to see it out in the open, drivable. So yeah, let's try and drive it up and down the street. Well, I think we're finally ready for our first test drive here in the neighborhood. The brakes are really not good. Don't do nothing at all. Probably all the pressure leaks out through the front at the low speed on a high gear, so you can go at a low RPM. Oops. Something started to sound really bad. I wonder what that was. I know what it is. Of course the car is coming behind me, but it is the battery has fallen into the fan. So I have to pick up the battery. Hopefully that's how much brake we have. I'm gonna just pick up the battery. Glad this was only that problem. The battery got a little scarred, but it seems to be fine. And remember to put a strap on the battery. Speaking of the sound, if you give it just this, that sounds really good. But if you do, that don't sound good at all. So we need to get that resonance, whatever you call it, echoing sound wave. But I mean, all in all, we have a driving car. Didn't really matter that I put some effort into the brakes, didn't do much. I think we are losing all the pressure through that wheel cylinder, but I mean, I was expecting to be changing them anyway, so not a big issue. Would have been just nice to have little more brakes, but yeah, I'm really happy where we're at right now. We have a running and driving car. I am going to take a bit of a break from it because I feel that car and the 75 Chevelle and a lot of other cars need some odds and ends that I want to address, so this will sit for a little while. But now I can just put it in my tent, and when I want to work on it, I can just drive it in the garage, work on it 1 day, 2 days, 2 weeks, and then do whatever again. So I really like having my stuff being drivable, and we have achieved that, so I'm really happy. So I will be leaving it with that today. So I hope you enjoyed watching, and I will see you tomorrow when we will hopefully be doing something else.